Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen.
Professor Giebelhausen?
Yes, Oscar, how can I help?
Can I ask a question?
You just asked one, but you can ask another.
I was looking through my Twitter feed the other day, and I saw a bunch of posts talking about teacher evaluation and Common Core, and I was really lost. It just seemed really political and which is confusing because I thought education was just about teaching kids. Can you explain what it is they were talking about?
You know, Oscar, some of the things you're asking are really hard to answer because, as you pointed out, it seems political. Honestly, I'm always a little stuck on how to share the politics of education with my students because I don't want it to seem like I'm indoctrinating young minds to my point of view, but on the other hand, as a teacher, I feel compelled to give you the full picture of what's going on in your future profession.
So, teaching is political?
Absolutely. Public education is funded by the government, mostly on a state and local level, but more and more on a federal level as well. Anything that receives government funds is subject to political debate.
But why is there so much debate? Shouldn't it be easy? Education is good. In order for education to happen, we need money. Give schools money, get good education.
Funding is certainly part of the dialogue surrounding the politics of education, but so is the content of education. During the 80s, there was this big report called A Nation at Risk, and in a nutshell, it claimed that American schools were failing, and in order to make them better, we need standards for education.
Wait, is this when standardized tests started? Because I hated those things. Weeks of stress surrounded by those awful tests that had nothing to do with my grade, and you could tell the teachers hated them too. They got all sorts of edgy. Some of them looked like they would combust if you poked them too hard.
I wouldn't suggest it. I think combustion is entirely possible. There's a lot of pressure on teachers these days to get everything right, and to be honest, the things that teachers are asked to do are pretty much impossible. Teachers work hard to educate every single student, but when test results don't come out in just a certain way, they pay the price. Right now, the system is punishing teachers who honestly are the biggest advocates for their students.
So, who is to blame for bad test scores?
Perhaps rather than passing blame, we should take a look at the tests themselves and the way the numbers are being crunched. One of the statistics that gets tossed around a lot is how low our scores are compared with other countries, especially countries like Finland and Hong Kong and the Netherlands and Japan. But many of these countries that are on top of the world's education testing mountain are also on top when it comes to SES.
Acronym speak. Put a quarter in the acronym jar, Giebes. Then, explain what the Duraflay you were just talking about.
SES stands for Socio-Economic Status, basically an economic and sociological combined total measure of a person's work experience and of an individual or family's economic and social position in relation to others, based on income, education, and occupation. But getting back to how that impacts testing, the countries that do well on tests have overall high SES and very little or almost no low SES.
Oh, so the game is rigged. These countries have less poor folk screwing up the data.
Oscar, that's a very crude way of putting things and somewhat unfair. These countries just have a very different economic and political landscape, and it affects the general population and their overall viability. The problem is that the US is being compared to these countries, and we do have a great number of people who are low SES. If the data were organized based on SES, then the United States does very well, if not the best, in every category.
Why don't the news programs share that information? Why is it that all we hear about is American public schools is gloom and doom?
Why indeed, Oscar. But that's a topic for another discussion on another day. I think you've heard enough from me today. But until the next time we chat, don't be afraid to talk about these hard issues of education with your friends. I want the next generation of educators to have a voice and speak out. Teacher voices have too long been silenced out of fear and frustration. But for now, a haiku. Don't be a chicken. The politics are rough, but use your teacher voice.
That's not funny.